Our first keynote speaker for the day is Mark Adams. He's a serial entrepreneur, an award-winning global thought leader, and he sits at the intersection of technology, entertainment, and brand building. He's worked directly with A-list celebrities and C-suite, and he's been helping to drive brand growth and transformation. He is now Senior Vice President and Head of Innovation at Vice Media Group, which has come from humble beginnings to create what is now, as you know, a global media empire with offices in over 40 countries. Please join us and give us a warm welcome to Mark Adams.
Hi. Can you hear me okay? Yes, amazing. Right. I'm exhausted because I just came off a 16-hour flight where I did that thing where I said I would sleep and then I just drank way too much. So I would say that you're about to witness probably me being cancelled. This is literally the end of my career right now. So I'm glad you could join me for it. So look, there's so much I want to get through. The most important thing, first of all, to say is like, I've wanted to come here for so long. I'm like the biggest fan of New Zealand in every possible way, from rugby to the fact I'm obsessed with drum and bass, and you guys are also the only niche lunatics that love drum and bass as well. So I'm so happy to be here, and I love the fact I've already got a little network of people here. So let's get into it. Who cares about me? It's about you guys. Turn to the people next to you. I'll come and annoy you, sir. Tell the people around you, not just whoever's next to you, who are you when you are not at work? Because we are not at work today, okay? And all I'll ask is, please, for the love of God, don't pitch your startup idea, okay? Please. So just turn to the person next to you like, I am a totally failed drum and bass DJ, right? That's what I am. I'm 40 years old. You can probably tell I'm unmarried, totally single. But you know, I'm not that sad. Sometimes I'm sad. I am sad sometimes. But I sit there and I try and make little drum and bass tunes, and I send them to even really good friends, and they're like, yeah, I think it needs a bit of work. Who are you when you are not at work? Go for it. 1 minute. Let's go. Go, go, go. Just never sit on the front row. Hi, I'm Mark.
Hi, I'm Morgan.
Pleasure to meet you, Morgan. Hi.
Nicole.
Pleasure. So who are you when you're not at work?
Well, I'm lucky. I think I'm the same kind of person as I am at home. So
Oh, you're lucky then.
really lucky.
What are you into?
What am I into? I'm into cooking, beauty stuff.
Cooking?
Yeah.
I can tell beauty stuff, of course. That goes without saying. And what would you say?
Oh God.
What do you do just to chill
I'm
or for
a lot
yourself?
messier at home, but that's about it. I mean, also like some drum and bass.
Oh, fucking have it, mate. That's amazing.
I can't cook. I don't know.
Drum and bass is a good answer. Okay. Okay, guys. Okay. Sorry, guys. Can we just make an observation? That's not an easy conversation to stop, right? Once you start going down that rabbit hole, like my new friends over here, we were like, what kind of success literature? Like this kind of spiritual stuff, or people? Well, we'll see. Before I go into this. Gentlemen, remember, never sit on the front row. Would you guys be willing to share what one of you said? Go for it.
We were just talking about sports.
Sports. Which one? Family. Yeah, I heard about that. Yeah. Which sport? American sports. Which ones? Basketball. Interesting. Any other basketball fans in the place? Yes, all right, we got a few. I was thinking, oh no, this is not going well. Okay, so we got some basketball people. And we got a couple of failed DJs, I can tell already. Here's the thing. If I had all fucking day, all we would do is this exercise. This is not some icebreaker, right? This is, and I mean this with love, people are fucking weird, right? They are quite strange. And if you really, think about how frosty it is right now. By the way, they always put the worst, this is a fact. If you're the first speaker, you're actually designated as the worst speaker, right? So I am literally like the balloon animal children's party DJ right now, right? But the point is, human beings are into some weird shit, right? And that's going to come back later in what we're talking about, because I think there's a massive opportunity in business there. I don't think we take that seriously enough. So look, why am I standing here? I've been lucky and unlucky. I am, as I say, a failed DJ. I'm from a place called Essex, if anybody's ever been there. If you haven't been there, don't go there, because, Essex is the kind of place that when you log in on Airbnb with an Essex postcode, it immediately logs you off, right? And everyone there is a failed DJ or yoga instructor. And that's pretty much what I did. I tried to run a night at a club called Fabric, and I couldn't book any artists. So I thought, well, I was a geeky little kid, and what you kind of realize is that people who are really good at digital, they tend to have like it's kind of like a graph. Like they've got they're really good at digital, but like not many mates and like no girlfriend, basically. So that was me. And so I started going to these artists that I wanted to book, whether it was Daft Punk or Pendulum, and say, look, guys, I haven't got any money, but I've noticed that your digital is really bad. And I'll look after your digital and sort it all out if you play my show for free. And just because the moment was right, people were like, oh, yeah, sounds like a good deal, right? Which obviously, in later hindsight, it was not. Anyway, point is, after that, I got to be part of the biggest talent agency of all time. If you ever watched Entourage, it's based on a company called William Morris Endeavour, WME. And I was the chief digital officer there. So my life was like, go and explain the internet to Usher, and like, go to Iceland and explain the internet to Björk. And I had to sit and like smoke a joint with Björk and try and explain the internet. And then at the end, she was like, the internet is like a tree. And I was like, yeah. Right. Anyway, so that was my life for many years. And then various different companies that I got to advise, all the way up to the most recent one, which is Vice, which I came on as an advisor for about 4 months ago, and the stock price has actually gone from billions to only hundreds of millions. So everything that I'm about to say, you should take with a pinch of salt, right? I am by no means a prophet, right? But I'm looking forward to my future as a children's party DJ. So here's the thing. What that little exercise was about, obviously it's a bit of fun at the beginning, but really and truly, we have a problem. We have a serious problem. And that is that we sit in our boardrooms and we mean well. I know we do, right? I know all of us, by the way, genuine, if you work in the creative industries, as you guys do, and especially at the intersection of creativity and technology, my God, it's exhausting. I was watching my brother's kid play football the other day, soccer, for you American sport lovers, and the ball goes over here, and every single 5-year-old chases the ball, right? And then they kind of kick each other in the head a little bit, and then the ball spills out and it goes over here, and 22 5-year-olds chase the ball again. And I was there with a hangover going, this is like fucking working in marketing. Because that's what we do. We're all like, oh, ChatGPT, how can we use ChatGPT, right? And and last year it was like influencer marketing. Oh no, she's been cancelled. No, okay, right? It's exhausting. So I wanted to try and give you guys a bit of sanity. I'm going to try and do it in an insane way that will hopefully entertain you enough that you'll remember some of this. But underneath the act and the bullshit, I really, really do stand by these principles, and I hope they help you. I really, really do. So if you want to get this deck or anything, add me on these things, whatever. So look, if you're part of a big brand, there is one thing you must always do. And actually, honestly, even if you're part of a small brand, you're going to learn this eventually. In the end, you're going to have to do this. In the end, you will have to target all potential buyers of your category. That's just how it is, okay? And if you haven't read How Brands Grow, there's a chap called Byron Sharp. He's so Australian. It's unbelievable. And he wrote this great book, to be honest with you. I mean, he's a complete dick, but he did write a great book. And basically, he talks about the idea that we build distinct memory structures, and then we refresh those distinct memory structures with reach and frequency of media and efficient CPM to keep them salient, AKA top of mind. And then people go around and go, oh yeah, that brand, right? And you do need to do that. So everything I'm about to say does not mean that you don't have to do that at the end. However, I know there's some brands here today. By the way, normally when I give a talk, I scan all the brands that are attending to see which of them haven't pulled out of Russia. And today, I would just like to say, every single brand in this room has pulled out of Russia, so well done, congratulations. Which is a shame, because normally I like to absolutely rinse one person in the audience for the most of my talk. Anyway, so look, here's the problem. This model that I talked about, this how brands grow model, it's really not working. This is brand relevance over the past period, right? It's going down, precipitously down. And the question is why? And my humble contention is this. All of human time, or more and more of human time, is being spent in places where you cannot buy an ad, right? I found out the other day, Netflix spent 16.8 billion on content this year. The UK spent 11.6 billion on defense, right? That's the war for attention that we are in. And God bless brands sitting in the boardroom with their agency partners going, oh, can't wait to launch this. People are going to go crazy. It's like, no, they're not, right? Because all human time is being sucked behind a paywall where for $7.99 a month, I can have all of these platforms that are all competing with each other, spending billions to get the biggest A-list actors and the best writers, probably not writers, but anyway, in the world, to suck all their time and attention out of our system. And so this wall, that I call the Great Wall of Culture, is moving ever further across into the space that used to be ad space. It used to be a place where you could buy ads and you could pay to get attention. So we really have to face up to this. Now, I'm going to try and make this super fast and hopefully super actionable. So here are the 7.5, I was a little bit drunk when I was writing this on the flight, 7.5 habits of lucky brands, right? The brands that everyone goes, oh, they've done it again. God. First one, what is the real problem? I call this catharsis. When I'm advising a brand, the first thing I do is basically short of, if I could, I would take them to do ayahuasca, just so they just got it all up, right? Because at a certain point, you realize that they'll talk about the problem that they have, and they'll be like, well, you know, we're not really connecting with the younger generation. And someone eventually at like 2 in the morning when you're sharing a cigarette with them and neither of you smoke will go, I'm not even proud to work at this brand because it's got a fucking horrible past and the founder was a slave owner, right? Or something, right? And so my point is, get it out. Say the unsaid. Because everything proceeds from that level of catharsis and honesty, right? I'll give an example. Coke came to us recently. We did this workshop with them. They were like, they were fucking around the subject. And then we were like, come on. And they were like, Gen Z they just don't even notice us. And this image pretty much defined, that's literally how Gen Z see. It's unbelievable, isn't it? That's how Gen Z see. They're literally just like this all the time. Which is interesting, because at the same age, I was also a massive weed smoker, and that's how I saw. So anyway, point is, we then turned around and said, okay, so how do we take the most physically available product in the world? You could go into the Amazon jungle and get a can of Coke, right? How do you take the most, it's like wallpaper. It just is everywhere. How do you make that special again? So we started to do completely and utterly wacko things. We would find networks in culture, and I'm going to talk about that later, and we would say, this network is a real network. They really are in culture, and they really, really do obsess about something. Let's use a really obvious one, gamers. Fortnite in particular. Quite a big thing, as I'm sure you know. Can't buy ads in Fortnite though, right? So we released a new type of Coca-Cola, and it was one of the best meetings I've ever had, was sitting with the new product division at Coke in Atlanta and saying to them, right, so we want you to make a can of Coke that tastes like a computer pixel. And they were like a computer pixel? And we were like, yeah. And they were like, oh, okay, right? And that was the idea. We wanted a can of Coke that was born in gaming to the point where it tasted like it was born in gaming. And the point is, of course, it's nonsense, really, but the only way you could get this Coke, which was called Coke Pixel, was inside Fortnite. So you would find these, they would be dotted around inside Fortnite, and if you found one, you then got it, and it would get physically made and delivered to your house. And the irony of this was, very small little trick, right? Suddenly, people were going absolutely nuts for this thing, to the point where, like, influencers, there was actually a backlash, and I'm proud to say, of influencers saying, can everybody stop talking about getting this Coca-Cola can and get back to the game, right? So anyway, point 2, what can you authentically say about your brand? And I think a lot of people here get a bit tripped up. They think that what you say has to be totally unique. Some brands are totally unique, but most brands, even their story, their equity, kind of it's a little bit like something else, and that's okay. So when I was at William Morris, one of my first client meetings was with this lady here, Madonna. And I'd written this whole playbook for her about how to be digital, basically. And long story short, she was not interested. And I was very heartbroken and crestfallen. And I had a message from Troy Carter, who was Lady Gaga's manager, saying, Gaga wants to have a chat. Can you come to New York? So we went, sat in a room. She was super attentive. Troy was super attentive. And then I just thought, I just think, we'll just give you the playbook that we wrote Madonna. And we didn't make qualms about it. We just said, your equities are kind of similar to Madonna's, actually, but you're like a younger version. We're going to tweak it, but we're basically going to take the playbook we wrote for another brand and give it to you, because that brand doesn't want it. And I'm not saying that Madonna didn't exist in culture after she ignored me, but I am. But honestly, what I mean is, don't get too hung up on how unique you have to be. If you're in a category and somebody ahead of you in market share terms is getting lazy, it's your duty to fuck them over, right? It is your duty to go, oh, you don't want it? Sure. Because marketing, and the best metaphor I've ever heard for market share, I just love this, is market share is like a knife fight in a phone booth. It's basically loads of people standing really close to each other, just stabbing one another, right? And the truth is, we're not all totally unique brands, right? But if there's somebody ahead of you and you think that what they should be doing, they aren't doing, do that. And Gaga, I remember 2 years later, Gaga had, I think it was 280 million fans across all the social platforms. And Madonna was still trying to get in contact with us saying, hey, there's this Brazilian guy who's got my Facebook page and it's called Madonna Official and he just keeps posting photos of his dog. And we were like, yeah, exactly. Right. So anyway, the next one is Muse. So I really want to make this point. This is really important, okay? If you take nothing from this talk, please take this. The design audience, the muse, the network that you decide to create specific things with is not the same as the broadcast audience that you use media to try and reach. With-vertising, advertising, okay? The best brands in the world have two audiences. One is the audience I showed you on the first slide, which is every potential buyer of the category. That's standard. Every brand knows that bit. That's orthodoxy. But there's some brands that know that you need to have another audience, and that's your muse. That's the audience you build with. That's Patagonia and the weekend adventurers. Yeah? That's Nike and the creative class, right? This is a more specific design audience that you're not just asking them to consume your product, you're asking them to be part of the story. And the best brands, the ones that outperform the market, all have this in common. Lego, the master builders. You could go on and on and on and on. Dove, So let me just show you a little example. So remember I said at the beginning, the networks, I was like, where are my drum and bass heads? Where's my people who love American sport? This room is a network of networks. Now, here's the sanity-inducing thing that I remember Sean Parker saying to me, just remember this. The internet is an interconnected set of networks. That's it. And you know when we're running from left to right, chasing the next thing? It's all just iterations on the same thing. Discord is the same as TikTok, it's the same as Instagram, it's the same as Facebook was, it's the same as fucking MySpace was, right? God bless MySpace. May it come, may it return. Hopefully Vice will also return. Anyway, so the point is that these networks, and this is 3 different definitions of the internet from the internet, which I think you'll agree is quite meta. And basically, when you remember that your job is to be both on the internet in advertising and in the internet in communities and networks. I know this sounds, I literally had to explain this to a CMO the other day, and I was like, the cat, I showed him a photo of a cat in a box. I was like, the cat is in the box. And then I showed him a photo of a cat on a chair, and I was like, this cat is on the chair, right? Because I was trying to get this really simple distinction that buying ads on the internet, on the advertising systems that interrupt the real content, but there's a whole button that skips our industry, right? It goes 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, fuck off, right? We literally have a button that skips all of our work. We have to find a way to be the content, not the ad that interrupts the content. And we can. We just haven't got enough bravado. We're playing too small as an industry. A brand builder is way too small. We need to do both. So my thing would be, Lululemon came to us, they were like, I'm just going to use an expression that they were basically like, we're a Karen brand, right? They were like, we are in serious danger of becoming this upper middle class lady who's like, Lululemon, right? And young people, and especially people who are not white middle class, are just like, nah, that's not cool, right? So we looked at their segmentation, and segmentation basically is strategy, right? And it was all over the place. So we went back to the origins of the brand. And bear in mind, they were trying to compete with Nike and Adidas and Sweaty Betty. And we were like, okay, go, let's do a workshop. Let's go back to it all. And they were like, well, we started off with the principles of yoga. And we were like, okay. Have you got anything about that? They were like, yeah, we wrote this manifesto. And it goes, breathing and flow leads to a more compassionate, non-violent existence. That sounds interesting. Let's dig into that. So we used a company called Codec, which is community-driven economy, to listen across those networks, right? That internet thing I was telling you about. They're all just networks, communities, networks of people having conversations about things they love. Failed DJs talking about music software, right? Spiritualists talking about going on retreats. And we said, what, in these networks, where would ideas that are very similar to yoga resonate? And we found this. The first line of the manifesto was breathing and flow. Now, we found that scuba divers talk about breathing and flow, but they're a bunch of other white middle-class people, right? But then we realized that over 100,000 times a day in a little community called hip-hop, people are talking about flow. Now, I'm not cool enough to ever I don't think any human being would have figured that out. That's artificial intelligence at scale, going, hang on, if yoga's about flow, and if you're a sick rapper, it's because you've got sick flow, if we're really careful and we just keep on that rope bridge, we can walk our equity straight into the middle of the hip-hop community, if we pull it off right. And likewise with meditation. People who are into arts and crafts, they don't knit a jumper because they can't afford a jumper. They knit a jumper because they love the physical meditation of knitting. And that's a little bit like yoga. So I'll show you the work, and I hope you like it. The first question you should ask is, where is the brand in that content? And the answer is every single millisecond shot is capsule collections launched for different communities. So everybody in that community is, when you see P Money, who's the fastest rapper in the world, he's wearing the hip hop capsule collection, right? And it smashed it, right? Hang on. And it allowed Lululemon to go places they'd never heard of. Like the lovely ladies at Lululemon were like, East London? Well, isn't it dangerous, right? And we could take them there and show them that there was a whole load of market share they were leaving on the table. And it smashed it. The brand climbed nearly 30% in a month, right? So I think there's a real learning here, which is that these networks exist, but the way to get them is to understand their pain. You've got to start to say, what pain is that network in? And does my equity or my brand or even just my product have any contribution to make? This is not about brand purpose, right? This is not like, what's my purpose? It's this brand contribution, right? And so here's an example. Smirnoff came to us. They were like, we're sponsoring all these festivals, and we want to reach young females who are into electronic music. We were like, okay, great. What are you doing apart from just putting a badge of your brand everywhere? They were like, oh, nothing. Exactly. So make a contribution. Turn around to all these festivals, 120 festivals that you're sponsoring, and say, make one day of your festival 50-50 male-female DJs. Just one day. Give all the female DJs the chance to get on that main stage. Now, I don't need to show you the content that came with all of this, because of course it was beautiful content like we just did with Lululemon. It's the principle of the contribution that earned fame, and we were desperately trying to embargo media from talking about it. Think about how the opposite of that it is. Normally you're like, hey, would you please take my press release and write about it? This time we were like, no, please don't release it. No, we're not ready. And they were like, no, we're running it. Right? That's momentum. So long story short, that started this massive chain reaction. Loads of festivals started doing exactly the same because of a brand. And then the final thing we did was use Spotify and say that we integrated with Spotify, not the paid, not the unpaid version, the paid version, and said you could download a plugin that would 50-50 every single playlist, male-female, so that these electronic producers, the female electronic producers, could get heard more. None of this involved any ads, and it absolutely smashed it. Of course, then we bought loads of ads, right? You always do that at the end. Final thing, then you action out your contribution. So make sure everybody sees this contribution, right? I'm not going to show you this, it's very depressing. But it's a bit too heavy. And then when you do that, whatever you do, whatever you put into that pain point that's a contribution that your brand, ideally, pretty much only your brand could do, but not necessarily, like I said before. Turn that into the story that you intend to blast out there in the world. Sure, this can be an ad, but my strong advice to you is use storytelling. You know, when the gentlemen were up here earlier, I realized how deep storytelling is in your culture, right? It's deep in every culture. We all, what a story does is it takes something niche and makes it applicable to everyone. You don't have to be a prisoner in a maximum security prison to watch The Shawshank Redemption, right? Do you see what I mean? Only brands think that you can just make content that's about that one muse audience, and then they'll say it's niche. Well, it's like, no, but if you make it into a story, it becomes mass. Because the immortal insight at the center of it isn't about, if I watch a cop show, it's not because I'm a cop, it's because there's human storytelling in this particular network. And so, I really want to show this to you, but I'm running out of time. Okay, final one, generate EOS. What I mean by that is generate earned, owned, and shared. Max out everything you can before you hit the big red paid button, right? Because at the end of the day, if brand building is just how much money do you have to buy ads and how much money do I have to buy ads, we might as well just get all our money out, put it on the table, and then we'll go, all right, then you win, let's not fight, right? Surely brand building has other steps, strategic things we can do to maximize the value of the dollars we are about to absolutely obliterate with our trusted media partner, right? So take that as far as you possibly can. And I just want to finish with this. This is something I had the pleasure of working on. And it keeps getting millions of views every month, even though the paid media stopped 8 years ago. So what was interesting about that is that it's 8 years old now. You can imagine it won a lot of awards, right, at the time. But every year we have this bet at Cannes Lions Festival, which is the creativity kind of booze up. And we basically, we have two metrics. Number one, how many more languages have the audience themselves translated it into? Because obviously it started in English. It's been translated into like 70 languages now. Not by us, not by Unilever, by the audience. Because it's making a contribution to a network that has a real pain point, and it's doing something. It has contribution, not communication, as its main purpose. And I honestly think that if we really want to start building brands now, the game of buying paid media in an ever decreasing, and I speak this to you as an advisor to a media company that is currently itself fucked, right? Because the whole business is in structural decline. The ROI is not good. And everyone is going to battle against the dragon with a spoon and wondering why they keep getting toasted, right? We have to seize the opportunity of being the only brand in our category that has an idea that goes further than key visual and shitloads of paid media. We have to. And if you do that, you will wipe the floor with your competitors. Everybody's motivated by different things. I am motivated by drinking the blood of my enemies. That's it. Okay? So, just to wrap up, now, point 7.5. Pay away, my friend. Blast all the money you can possibly blast on paid media. You have my permission. But don't dare do it before you've been through these steps. Because that is not playing the game in a sophisticated way. There's two ways up this mountain. One of them is to just pay through the nose. And your partners, by the way, AKA salespeople, who are there going, oh, you should spend more, right? Don't listen. Max out everything that can be maxed out before you hit that button. So this is it. Catharsis, honesty, Muse network, figuring out their pain, not your pain, their pain, right? Actioning a contribution into that pain, just trying to solve it. People are very pragmatic. They don't expect you to solve world hunger, but they do, like, Turkish Airlines put the dogs that had been in the rescue after the earthquake in Turkey, dogs from all over the world and their handlers came to Turkey to help pull people out the rubble. Turkish Airlines put those dogs and their handlers on first class back home. It didn't cost them hardly anything, but everybody in the world went, oh, a brand contributing. Unbelievable. Then immortalize it. What I mean by that is, don't you dare do some CSR thing in the back cupboard somewhere and never tell anyone about it, right? Whatever you do, make sure every fucker knows, right? I'm constantly sitting there with people who are like, yeah, we did this amazing thing the other day. I'm like, where's the content about it? So make sure you immortalize it. And when I say immortalize it, I'm really serious. The Dove ad is 8 years old, and it's getting millions of views a month. It will keep getting, I'll be dead from alcohol poisoning, and it will still be getting views, right? And then max out that earned, that owned, and that shared, and then deploy the paid media. I hope this brings a little bit of sanity. I feel like it's a horrible thing where the more you care about what you do, the more exhausted you feel. And I don't want you to feel like that. I want you to realize that there is this opportunity. The internet is this interconnected set of networks. You have a brand. There are networks out there that you can build with. Do it. Find exactly this model. Find what those networks are. Start building with them. They will do so much more than just buy your product. So, to begin, begin inside culture, identify the communities that you can market with, not at. In the middle, build fame through a true story worth telling that earns, owns, and shares its way past all the bullshit detectors and the ad filters. And then at the end, work inside the advertising systems that we talked about. Buy all the paid media you want. Target all potential buyers of your category with a powerful myth. And I'm just going to finish with this because you know when it's worked, when culture reacts. If you've done something that culture even is aware of, that's a good thing. So I'll just leave you with this, and the main message of this is, men, you are actually less beautiful than you think you are.
Thank you so much, Mark. Well, look, for what you said was going to be the worst talk of the day, you've pretty much set us up for a great ride. Thank you very much. And also, thank you for staying awake. I know you're pretty jet-lagged. So many questions. Look, if you want to ask any questions to Mark, log into Slido. You've just had an email. If you log into Slido, sli.do, and just put in future state, you can find the event today, and you can ask all the questions. But I'm going to get you started now that you covered a lot of ground very quickly. We're a little bit exhausted, hence sitting down. But you have something that conflicted for me, and I want to guide us through it. So you said, basically, Madonna, you're an idiot. What were you doing not listening to me? And then you said, marketing is like a football game where everybody's chasing everything. And so what if Madonna went, I'm not going to chase your stupid ball because I don't think this is the next thing?
Yeah.
Because Madonna's probably being approached all the time by people going, oh, ChatGPT, oh, this, oh, that, you should do, this is the next thing. And at some point, you just go, I'm too dilute, and I don't know what the next shiny thing is. And hindsight's great where we can mock Madonna, but the other option is we spend all our money on all this stuff, like Google Glass and all of the things that we're going to, right? Yeah. The things that we're going to change the world. Yeah. And they were shit. So how do we not chase a soccer ball but not lose out like Madonna?
It's a great question. And I think I don't really remember much from school, but my parents are teachers. They're actually lovely people. My dad has this kind of Glaswegian, has this kind of Shrek accent, so like he'll be like, I love you, but you don't feel loved. But anyway, the point being that my dad will always say, go back to first principles, right? And I think, it's like, you ever heard there's the Aesop fable about there's a hedgehog and a fox. The fox is crafty. The fox knows every trick in the book. He's fast on ChatGPT. He's invested in crypto. He's also in the toilet. But the hedgehog just knows one thing. It just knows how to curl up in a ball, and the fox will never find it. And I think, I don't know about post the digital revolution, but since the digital revolution, the thing that's given me the most sense ever, even though it was said to me by a complete raging drug addict maniac, Sean Parker, at 7 in the morning after a big night out, is just that thing about the internet being an interconnected set of networks. Because suddenly you're like, oh, okay. It's like, right, that's it, And so I think what Madonna didn't really grasp, or what her team couldn't really grasp, was that there was a new first principle being established in how to build a brand, and that was basically the internet. And I know this is really controversial, and final thing I'll say, this is really controversial, but I might go as far as to say that if it's true, if the first principle of digital is that the internet is an interconnected set of networks, maybe you could say, if you don't think about choosing strategically networks and activating networks all the time, then you're not digital. Ooh.
It's pretty bold. I'm just going to leave you with that. There are lots of questions coming through. I'm actually going to summarize them in a second. I've got one more question for you. We're running out of time. But you talked a little bit about making sure that, people are talking about you and that you're into culture and all stuff. And look, recently, Bud Light did this thing.
Yes.
Wait, let's talk about cancel culture a second, because there's a really fine line that you have to walk on. And they use Dylan Mulvaney, transgender influencer.
Yeah.
And it hasn't seemed to have gone that well.
Yeah. Well, look, here's the thing. If you speak to anybody in Silicon Valley, if you go to Sequoia Capital or Andreessen Horowitz, or speak to Travis, who started Uber, or Brian Chesky, who started Airbnb, they'll tell you that your first thing you have to do is, this is how little brands understand, and their agencies understand about networks. like, when you say the word network effects to them, they go like, huh? They don't even know that they have a network when they have a network. So Bud, it was a perfect example of going like, they thought so little about networks that they didn't realize they did have a network, and that network was a bunch of rednecks, right? Right? And so to speak, that's obviously extremely broad, but if they'd thought about networks, the first thing they would have said was, how do we get new networks but defend existing networks? And brands are so, the network analysis piece is so alien to them that they don't even know when they have one. And that was a prime example of just not, they were thinking about doing some, it's like there was some kind of gimmick influencer, right? Think about it, tricks and gimmicks. Oh, we're going to get an influencer who agrees with my personal point of view on the world because I read The Guardian or what, And they didn't realize that their own network, they didn't even know they had it. So therefore they know they have it now. Do you know what I mean? Right? And you see that all the time. And the best brands in the world, Airbnbs, all the tech companies in the world, think about things in terms of building and then defending networks and then advancing to new networks and conquering them. And that was a prime example of not understanding the first principle of the internet.
Amazing. Look, we're going to have more time to chat later on. There's a panel session coming up, so keep your questions coming in on Slido. I'm going to collect them at the end. But ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Mark Adams.
Thanks, guys. See you later. This is for my mum and dad. Cheers.